Hi guys, today we're going to set the valve lash on the Jaguar 960. Mercedes-Benz OM 473 motor, so 6 in a row, on around about 580, 600 horsepower. And we're just going to go through things specific to this motor, but more importantly, general tips and tricks for setting valve lash, what it's all about, why we do it, and yeah, how we do it on the Jaguar. It's a bit of a pain in the arse on the Jaguar. There's a few things we have to do to be able to get at the valves. I was hoping to show you on my old timer, or one of my old timers, but I forgot and I did it without filming. So we're getting down to it on the Jaguar, and we're going to take you guys along for the ride. Sit tight. So we're on the left hand side of the chopper. That's the drive belt that drives the drum, and this is important to remember, or to think about, that this is the rear side of the motor. This is where your clutch is on a normal tractor. So this is where you're going to find cylinder number 6. It's not always the case, so be sure to check your workshop handbook or whatever. Deutz motors are usually the other way around, and there's various other companies that don't know how to count 1 to 6 in the right order. So cylinder 1 is usually at the front where the fan is. It's a little bit different on V-shaped motors, but there you start front left. We'll get to that in another video. Basically, where the fan is usually number 1. The rear side, where the drive goes to the gearbox, is the highest number cylinder. So this is a side we need to turn the wheel a little bit so that we can get down here, and I'm going to show you why we need to get down here. So this is why we need to get down to the left hand side, or the rear side of the motor. These are what we call motor turners. You use these basically to turn the motor over easily. This is for a Cummins. This is for a Caterpillar C9, C13. This is what we need for today. This is for the Mercedes motors, and this is also a Mercedes turner. This is another with the double sprocket, and this is with a triple sprocket, which you have to think about when turning, so that we turn the motor in the right direction. So with this, you are turning the motor because it's got 3 sprockets. The way you turn the bottom sprocket is also the way you turn the top sprocket, and then obviously the flywheel in the opposite direction. And here you've just got 2 sprockets, so the flywheel will turn in the direction that you're turning. Yeah, it doesn't matter as long as you know what you're doing. This is the one we need today, and if you look down the flywheel housing, there's a little cover here with two M8 bolts. You take that off and you screw this bugger in. I'll get that done. Right, Mercedes, in all their wisdom, designed this tool with a 1/2 inch male adapter. So that thing is on the tool. I haven't made up a 1/2 inch female adapter yet, so female to female. So basically, I just bash a 15mm socket on that, and it works. What else do you use a 15mm socket for anyway? I take an extension, I don't know what's that, a 20cm extension, and a good long snap-on 1/2 inch ratchet, and yeah, we can turn away. That's one way of doing things. Now I'm going to show you the other way if you don't have this special tool. Can't get the bugger off. So now we're at the front of the motor. You can also turn the motor on this side, or turn it over on this side. There used to be a special tool from Claas that would fit onto this pulley here, but they changed the pulley designs, so that doesn't fit on this anymore. And pretty much the only way to turn it over from this side now is just to sit a socket on an extension and you ratchet on one of these bolts that bolts into the flywheel. Now they're pretty tough. They're 10-9 bolts. However, if you've got a problem, or if the motor's just a bit hard on compression, I'm not going to be the one who's going to guarantee you that they won't break off. Now the good thing about using this side of the motor is you can easily mark this pulley as to when you have top dead center. So, well, that's the fucking dog gone. Yeah, basically you find top dead center on cylinder 1 and you mark it. And I can see an old mark here, which I hope is my mark. And then basically all you need to do is to see if you're on compression or intake. Hey dog? What are we barking at? You stunned? Yeah, stunned as well, yeah. So to set the valves, we want our cylinder to be on top dead center, or cylinder 1 to be on top dead center, and then we need it to be in the compression stroke, and then we can set half the valves, and then we need to turn it 360 degrees, at which point we will have cylinder 6 in top dead center compression and cylinder 1 in top dead center intake. So it's handy here to be able to mark the pulley, so you don't have to jump up and down and see where you're at. So here's the main problem with the Jaguar, is you really need to take these pipes off. So basically we need, I don't know if you can see that, oh, I just dropped something. Intercooler, or from turbo to intercooler, needs to go, so charged air. Then behind it we've got the fresh air intake pipe, needs to go. Then pretty much after that it's just take off the valve cover. It's not that bad, it's just that these pipes are a bit of a pain in the ass to get off. Hang on. Like here, you know, to just get them out of there, you have to wobble and pull, and it's just a pain in the arse. Well, when you're in. On some of the Jaguars, you can open up the roof up here, and you've got a mint view, proper good light and everything. Not on this one. So we're gonna have to cramp ourselves in here, but it's alright. That's what we paid for. Right, so now we're going to open up the valve cover, and we're going to do that from the middle outwards so that we don't put any unnecessary pressure on the plastic valve cover. We're going to try not to get a bunch of shit in there, because this is very important that we try to keep everything clean now. So bear with me and I'll pop the cover off here. These two screws here are a pain in the arse, because you have to remove them so you can get to the one ventile, the one valve screw that's hiding underneath. It's one or two. Yep. Who cares? Let's take this bugger off here. Come on, you dickhead. That's bollocks. I just dropped the screw. Oh, we'll find it. And now we should be able to remove the valve cover. So we just got to be careful not to get a rock of shit in there, and not to do anything silly. So yeah. Oh. Now we got that out of the way. We'll take the valve cover to the wash table in a minute, or when we're finished, get it cleaned up. First things first is to just wipe the dirt away from the lip, or from the ridge of the valve housing here. Just being careful not to drop any scrud in the valve housing. So I just wipe towards the outside. It's like wiping your arse. Wipe away from the important bits, and yeah, you'll be right. Right. Now, what we've got here is the 6th cylinder. Now, I've set the motor to this mark on the pulley on the flywheel, which I presume is my last mark for top dead center. Top dead center, cylinder 1, or in this case, cylinder 1 and or 6. So, to see if I really do have top dead center, I will feel firstly the rockers. So here we've got intake and exhaust, hot side, cold side. Here everything's loose. Are we in top dead center? Well, the way to prove we're in top dead center is to go over to cylinder number 1, and when we're in top dead center compression on cylinder 6, we should be in top dead center intake on cylinder 1. And what that means is, at the moment the exhaust closes, the intake opens. So for a tiny degree, both the intake and the exhaust valves are open, and that's to, I don't know, sort of get a pull of air, so that the fresh air coming in will push the exhaust gas out, or the exhaust gas that's leaving the cylinder will pull the fresh air in. So if we're in top dead center compression on cylinder 6, that means that we should be in intake on cylinder 1, and that means that these should, both intake and exhaust, should be
a little bit open, and they are. So you can, you can touch, you can feel on the rockers. If you got a motor with push rods, I like to turn the push rods, but you can also feel on the caps here. All these caps are tight, so both these are being pressed down a little bit. That means we have compression on cylinder 6, and that means we can start with cylinder 6 to set the valve lash. Right, so let's get at it. What tools do we need? We need a 17mm ring spanner. It's important that you use a ring. Don't try using the other end. Definitely a ring spanner, 17mm. We need a 6mm Allen key. Whatever you do, don't drop anything in there anymore. Then we need feeler gauges. Now this, like majority of Mercedes motors in the agricultural discipline, are 0.4 or 0.4 and 0.6. This is in millimeters. So 4/10 and 6/10. 4/10 is intake, 6/10 is exhaust. Right, on top of that, what else we need? We need a torque wrench. These nuts are all torqued up to 50 Newton meters. That's about, I don't know, 38 freedom tensions. I don't know, I think. Yeah, and now I'm going to show you how I do it, how I learnt to set valves, which I think is the easiest and quickest way. As we discussed, we have cylinder 6 in the position of top dead center compression, and cylinder 1 is in top dead center overlap. What that is, you should have gathered by now. So what that means is we can set the valves on the intake and exhaust for cylinder 6. We can also set the valves for intake on cylinder 5, but not exhaust. So here we can do both. Because it's in top dead center, both of these are not being pushed. We can do intake here on cylinder 5. In that case, we can do exhaust on cylinder 4. We can do intake on cylinder 3. We can do exhaust on cylinder 2. And we can do nothing on cylinder 1. Hopefully I explained that properly. Then when we've done that, we'll turn the crankshaft 360 degrees, and cylinder 1 will go to top dead center compression. Its corresponding cylinder, cylinder 6, will be in top dead center overlap, and then we can do the other valve sets that we didn't do on the first run. And that basically means you just turn the motor once and you've set your valves. Right, that's how I do it. The other way of doing it is off the firing order. And basically what you would do is you'd start with cylinder 1 in compression, top dead center, so with all 4 loose. You'd set them. Then you go to the next cylinder in the firing order, which would more than likely be the 5th cylinder, so you'd turn the motor until the 5th cylinder was completely loose, and then you turn the motor again so that the 3rd cylinder was loose, if that's your firing order, generally 15, 36, 24, and so on and so forth, which is a good and very surefire way to do it, but you know, it's a bit of a pain in the arse if you're alone and you've got to get in and out. I don't like turning the motor more than necessary, so we do it my way. And that should work for pretty much any motor. So definitely works by all the Mercedes motors, John Deere. So we'll start on the intake, and basically, if you can see that, we need to get between the valve and the valve cap. That's the valve cap, it's this bit, and the valve is down there. This is an overhead cam motor, so it looks a bit different. Luckily, we've not got Jake brakes because it's an agricultural motor. That'd make it all a bit more complicated. This is without Jake brakes. We want to shove it between here. This is intake 0.4, and that really does feel very good. It's not slipping through too easy, but it's not. I've not pressured it in. You've just got to be careful when you're setting the valves that you're not actually pressuring down on the valve. So it's just, you know, it shouldn't slip about on its own. It should sit and stick in there a bit. Now, check the other intake. This is also very good. Yeah. Just got to get a feel for it. Like I say, not too much pressure, not too loose. You've got a tolerance of 5/100ths. So if you're not sure, you can take the size feeler gauge up a 0.45, and that shouldn't, if that doesn't fit in, then you know that you're within your tolerance, or no, obviously the size below. That's you know, there's always a bit of tolerance. You know, it's not a Swiss watch. Somebody once told me. So now I'll do the exhaust with the 0.6. And really be careful, like I say, if you drop some in here, it could be buggered. So the exhaust is, as I imagined, a little tighter. So we're going to set the exhaust. Right, to set the exhaust, we're going to loosen up the locking nut. And don't loosen it too much. It's a pain in the arse if you loosen it too much. Right, now we're going to take the feeler gauge, and we're going to try and put it under, and we're going to loosen the set screw until we can get the feeler gauge underneath. And then, whilst putting pressure on the set screw, we're going to just tighten it up and feel to the point where we've got that pressure that we want. Okay. Now bear in mind that when you set, or when you tighten the locking screw, what will happen is it'll pull the set screw upwards a little bit. So it's always better to err on the side of tight than too loose, because if you start, you know, if you start loose, when you lock the locking bolt or locking nut, you will then have more, you know, more looseness, so to speak. So then just gently sit her on, have a feel. Ah, she's right. She's right. Just go a little touch tighter. That's it. So I've got the pressure that I want. You know, that's nice. That feels good. Now I'm going to hold the position with this, or with my Allen key. I'm going to tighten it with my 17mm ring. Now, just a final touch. Check it out. Perfect. I will do the same for the other one. It can be a bit of a fiddly job, but you know, once you know what you're doing, it's alright. So just be careful not to drop anything or let any shit fall in here. You don't want shit in your mouth. Cover. You don't need to bollock them up super tight either, because we're going to go through it with a torque wrench. Oh, it's a bit too loose. I'm not happy with that. That's alright. Still a tiny bit too loose. Now we've got those done, we'll put a white mark on them so that we know we've done them. Now cylinder 5, we can do the intake. That feels good though. His neighbour, oh, his neighbour's a bit tight. I think we'll set his neighbour. I'd have probably got away with it, but while we're here, you know, doing YouTube and stuff, why not? Why not do it? So, turn it up a bit. Too tight. Tighten it up again. Perfect. So that's mint. So now we've got that set of valves done. Now I've got to go and turn the old crankshaft. My bloody ratchet buggered off. I knocked it down somewhere. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to turn the crank until this goes all the way around back to here. So if we've turned the old motor around correctly, I'll just get my foot in, we should now have all, yeah, on the first cylinder everything's free. The intake should be free on this one. It is. The exhaust should be free here. It is. Intake here. Exhaust here. And the deciding factor is that all 4 of these are tight. Yes. Right, let's get in amongst it. We'll start over here on cylinder 5 exhaust. Where have we got the 06? And check these out. He's a bit too tight, and he's a bit too tight. Right. Same procedure. Loosen him off. Set the tension. Hold the tension. Tighten a bit. Check. Tighten a bit more. Same on this one. Like I say, once you get used to it, it's definitely nothing to worry about. Oh, slipped out a little bugger. Come on, get under there. Is he under here? A little bit more. That feels nice. Pull it. Check it. And pull it. So why do we check valve lash or set valve lash, you might ask, or you might not ask. I don't know. Well, basically, there's a combination of factors that influence the valve lash. The first factor being wear on the valve body, on the valve tips, on the valve caps, and the other factor is scrud, basically. Dirty old scrud. And it's more common on exhaust valves than intake valves, but you know, you could get coked up valves, and if your valves, or if your valve lash isn't proper and your valves aren't opening at the exact moment that they're supposed to be opening at, then we're going to have a problem with airflow to the cylinder, and that'll be much more apparent on these modern motors that are measuring air so precisely for the injection system. And then, you know, we've got this overlap point, or point of overlap, and we want to push the exhaust gases out and pull the fresh air in, and it's such a minute point of overlap that, you know, if your valve lash isn't correct, you might almost have no overlap. So that's also a problem for the performance of the motor. Another thing is while you're here, if you notice a massive variation in valve lash, then you could spot a bent valve or a bent rod or something. So it's important to get under here and have a look. What we used to have by the V8 motors, the OM 502s, was that the valve springs would break, and you know they'd break, but they'd hold themselves just enough so that the valve didn't drop. And I've seen some motors that were driving like that for a bloody long time, really. And obviously, if somebody had checked the valves, they'd have seen it and probably saved a lot of fuel and a lot of wear on the motor. But you know, it is what it is. And if you've got too much play in your valves, then you'll have an extreme amount of wear, and obviously that sort of adds to the point that something's going to break. You used to be able to hear it on like the old Land Rover motors. You could hear the old tappets, and it either meant, you know, it was time to set the valves, or you hadn't got any oil in there, you know. So when you got too much valve lash, you are gonna have a much higher amount of wear on the motor. So it's not just the efficiency of the motor, but the wear of the motor as well. So I don't know if I've missed anything out, but basically modern motors rely, I hope he's tight, rely so much on a precise mixture of air and diesel at the right times, that we really do need to ensure that valve lash is correct, so we're not damaging valve seats, bush rods or whatever. I mean, obviously, if somebody really buggers this job up, you could also have it that a valve kisses the piston, you know, which is something that you don't want to do, or you don't want to happen. So now we've got them all set. My foot's going sleep here. Yeah, now we've got them all set. We just need to check the torque. 50 newton meters, I think that's something like 38, 37. Bald eagles. You usually should have them to 50 newton meters anyway, so you don't need to worry about holding them. You're not adjusting anything, you're just making sure. Oh, that's that. We've got it done. Now what's all left to do is make sure she's clean before we put the valve cover back on. And the most important thing for me is to now get out and give the motor at least one good turn, so a complete revolution, so that you know you've got no sticking valves, nothing's hitting the pistons, and everything's working as it should. Now